get confused. Stay It's like your chair. Yeah, it's not your chair, it's like your chair. I'm going to see this one then. I'll show you in a minute. Love that one. Share clear. I know, that's what I was like. She's like, yeah, that's good. Right. Yeah, that should
We're on your little phone, which is so fast. Probably be bigger than that. You probably don't recognise him with your grey hair.
You probably got inches high. Last month, I think I shrunk.
He's probably shrunk. He's probably only inches high.
We thought it was just over. Well, that's expensive too, but that's okay. How you going? Just wondering, yeah. Gorgeous. I think so. It's not always the best.
When
beautiful dreamer, wake unto me. Stars to drop are waiting for thee. Sounds of the rude world heard in the day. Loved by the moonlight have all passed away. Beautiful dreamer, queen of my song, listen what I would hear with a soft melody. Gone are the cares of life's busy throng. Beautiful dreamer, awake to my song. Beautiful dreamer, awake unto me.
We are gathered together today to remember and honour the life of Allan Jeffrey Craig, known to most of us as Geoff. Death reminds us that we live in a fallen and imperfect world. We are reminded of mankind's failings, flaws, and limitations, and yet we are also reminded and invited to consider the precious nature of life. Death invites us to recognise our need for this life to be done together in family and community. As it is with life, so it is with mourning. Although a very personal and individual experience, the path of grief can be sprinkled with courage and hope when we are able to walk it together. My name is Amanda Cox, and it is a privilege to officiate today's service as we remember and give honour to the life of Geoff Craig. On behalf of Peg, Stephen, Michael, Alana and their families, I would like to thank you for being with us and for your love and support during this time. Geoff's final moments were spent with both Peg and Stephen by his side. The weeks and days leading up to them, Peg was with Geoff each and every moment, doing everything possible to make him comfortable and to let Geoff know he was not alone during his transition. Unfortunately, some people have been unable to join us today and send their sincerest apologies and deepest sympathy. These include, but are not limited to, Brooke Scott, Bryce Cox, Jenny, Geoff's younger brother John and wife Lorraine, and members of the Blacktown Pigeon Club. Funerals can be a cause for personal reflection. They often provoke us to consider some of the deeper and bigger questions of life that can go wanting as we go about the many micro moments that make up our days and years. There are times that we tend to look closer at our own lives, our relationships, our health, and our future. As questions arise from these reflections, emotions also begin to make themselves known. We often blame our busy lives for not allowing time to consider these things, and yet I wonder if we were to be truly honest with ourselves, if it's more that our fears and our uncertainty keeps us from giving much consideration to the concepts of life, death, purpose, suffering, and grieving. And for good reason. Fear alone is a burdensome emotion, and at times it can be unbearable. In fact, many of us spend numerous hours trying to avoid feeling fear at all. Sometimes it's the fear of fear itself that snares us, potentially keeping us from living life more fully. A life fully lived is one that feels deeply and knows the value that all emotions bring to our experiences. Grieving is a voyage through the seas of choppy waters. It includes thoughts and feelings that can be surprising, some that make sense and seem appropriate, and others that don't. But as Franklin Roosevelt has said, a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. During these challenging times, through the waves of grief, may we all allow and embrace moments of introspection. As we remember the life and days of Geoff, may we embrace the opportunity to be curious about what anchors our internal world, to allow vulnerability and openness within ourselves, and maybe to even share with a trusted loved one. For it is these inner workings that directly impact the external expression of who we are. Above all else, may we be kind to ourselves, to one another, bearing with each other in grace and understanding. It's time now for me to share what I've learnt putting together a eulogy about Geoff's life. And before I begin, I really want to acknowledge what an honour it is to hear people's stories. It really is amazing to hear about the days that precede someone's passing and all that their life entails that we often don't hear about during life. Allan Geoffrey Craig was born in Hobart on the 22nd of January 1929, the third of 4 sons to Edward and Elsie Lee Craig. The Craigs lived in Hobart until Geoff was around 6 years old when they moved to Sydney. It was in Sydney where Geoff accumulated his love of sports, including his favourite team, the Sydney Swans. Not limited to AFL, Geoff loved all sports, including horse racing, cricket, and rugby league. Geoff's younger brother of 9 years, John, remembers going along to all of these sports, and it was Geoff who was intentional about creating memories. One memory shared from John was Geoff taking him to Sir Donald Bradman's last game at the SCG. Geoff had told John, "You've got to do it for the memory." And memories they made as they travelled across town to support sports and sportsmen alike, including Clive Churchill, who I'm told is the Ron Barassi of rugby league. Ron Barassi, for those who don't know, is a legend of the AFL game and coached 59 games at Geoff's beloved Sydney, and ironically passed on the same day as Geoff. Geoff was known to be very pragmatic about things. He was a hard worker and was very political, a strong unionist in his day. He worked hard at a foundry for years under dreadful conditions, and John said was instrumental in fighting for these conditions to be improved for the workers. Geoff championed change for conditions that we take for granted, like taking a drink break. You can imagine the need for this on a hot Sydney day in the summer working in a factory. When Geoff left the foundry, he became a postman, and a senior one at that, in Parramatta, a vocation that he often talked fondly about in his later years. Many people remark about Geoff's amazing memory, his knowledge of Melbourne Cup winners, even the second and third place getters and the jockeys. And Brother John wonders if it was his amazing memory that made him such a great postman. John, who was the youngest of the boys and 9 years younger than Geoff, says of earlier times that Geoff was more like a father figure than a brother, although he does recall their mother lamenting over Geoff's inability to cook or wash, which is something she prided herself and wanted to bring them all up to be able to do. She would say, "He can't even make a cup of tea because he can't even boil water." A sentiment that Stephen confirmed when in later years he would have to cook for his dad. "We're not eating like fighting cocks," Geoff would say, "just cook something up simple." John reminisced on the phone this week that there was a time when the eldest brother was unwell and they headed to the Central Coast, leaving Geoff and Father at home. Father was working shift work and Geoff was a jeweller at the time. He recalls coming across their notes. Cereal in cupboard, 2 bananas. Next day, no milk, no banana, no cereal. "Geoff, your turn to do the washing." Apparently, Geoff took the clothes out, put them on the line and hosed them down. John says this was about as close as he got to becoming a housewife. Geoff married his first wife, Nessie, in his early 20s and was married for 10 years before Stephen came along. Stephen, an only child, wasn't always lonely as Geoff and Nessie also reared nieces and nephews. An older nephew loved being with them so much, Stephen recalls basically growing up together. Stephen and Geoff had a good and close relationship. Not only was Geoff an amazing support for Stephen's sporting endeavours, which are a story of their own, aren't they, Stephen?
Yeah.
Sometimes he would drive 20 kilometres on the postie bike just to watch Stephen play cricket. He also encouraged Stephen to learn the piano and organ, which eventuated into Stephen playing in bands. And while both Nessie and Geoff would go along to support Stephen and listen, his choice of music wasn't always appreciated. Stephen remembers Geoff sitting in the shed listening to him practice with a bike helmet on, just to cope with the noise. That is some commitment. The song Beautiful Dreamer by Bing Crosby that opened our service today was a song that Geoff would ask Stephen to play over and over again. Turns out Geoff himself enjoyed music and was very good at playing the harmonica. Along with music, Stephen says Geoff loved his cars and would care for them to the extent of putting bitumen on the floor to ensure that they didn't rust. Nessie and Geoff moved to Tasmania and bought a house in East Devonport. And upon their separation, even though it was Geoff who was Tasmanian by birth, it was Nessie who stayed as Geoff returned to Sydney to live with Stephen. During this time, Geoff and Stephen raced pigeons together. 3 of Geoff's birds are on the wall of the Blacktown Pigeon Club, where Geoff is a life member. 3 champion pigeons. A winner from Renmark, South Australia to Sydney, 1 from Gympie in Queensland to Sydney, and a young bird national winner from Ballina. Geoff returned to the Apple Isle in the 90s, complete with Stephen's set of golf clubs. Stephen only noticed them under the tarp when Geoff asked him to put it down, and Stephen asked, "Are they my golf clubs in there, Dad?" To which Geoff replied, "Yes, they're better than mine. I thought I'd take them with me." So Geoff returned to Tas and enjoyed a number of games of golf during his time, and there were many golfing conversations around our dinner table at recent Christmas breakfasts between Michael and my dad, right up until last Christmas, where our 16-year-old son Bryce and Geoff were in the hallway with little soft golf balls, still trying his hand at golf. Geoff really loved his golf. It was, however, at a game of bowls that Geoff met Peg. Although Peg assures me that he didn't really like bowls, he only went because she was there. A sentiment that was confirmed by Stephen, who remembers the day Dad called to say that he'd met Peg. "I've met someone at bowls today, Stephen," which Stephen said, "Yeah? You're always meeting people at bowls, Dad." Apparently, it's to be different this time. Peg says, "Geoff was lovely when I met him and we were very happy. He was a good and kind-hearted man, always willing to help. Although he wasn't one for gardening, but he loved the flowers." Peg says he loved those things that dropped everywhere. Turns out they were his camellias. Peg said I would say to him, "They want chopping down, they're making a hell of a mess and there's no one to clean them up." And Geoff would simply say, "Oh, I love them. It doesn't matter if they're making a mess. I really like them." Something tells me that was a repeated conversation up in Parklands. Peg and Geoff lived in Wynyard before moving to Parklands, a home that they both loved and enjoyed caring for. This home was to be the place where loved neighbour Gary says you can be sure for a great conversation over a couple of beers. He told me that between him and Geoff, they saved the world a number of times. It was also in this home where it was evident to anyone that visited that there was a deep love between Peg and Geoff. John shared with me this week that he and his wife always saw the great love between them. He said they knew each other's funny things and laughed about it. This love held Geoff and Peg right through to his final days. Geoff left this earth having lived and loved. He has left those precious memories he wanted to ensure were made during our lifetime, and it is in those that his loved ones can now hold dearly. I'd like to invite Stephen, Geoff's son, to come and share a tribute to his dad.
Thanks, Amanda, for that. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. It's very much appreciated. And thank you all for all the help you've given us over time. Michael, Amanda, it's just been brilliant. It's been really, really good. Dad was a very kind and generous man. As you've heard, he gave me so many things that other children didn't have. I was taught musical instruments at an early age. I played cricket at pretty good levels, and Dad would cycle on a push bike, basically push bike 20, 25 kilometres on a Saturday just to come and see me play. So it's a rare person that will do that. At the same time, Mum would take me to the game, Dad would turn up. But he always said, okay, I can book a couple of hours overtime and a meal allowance for that, so he's always had a job. So I'd like to thank Uncle John and Auntie Lorraine that are watching, Jenny, the grandchildren who are watching on through live streaming today up in Sydney. Also Geoff's niece, Judy, and her husband Dennis that are watching via live stream. And I thank the funeral home today for organising that for us, because they've been so helpful, such wonderful people. I'd love to thank them very, very much. Dad was always a Tasmanian at heart, born in Eulogy, on Elwood Road near the racecourse. I think that's one of Friday's love of horse racing. Went back to Sydney, and he always wanted to come back to Tasmania, where eventually he did, and came back to love of his life picking. Dad spent a lot of time in most of his life in Sydney, and his mother was a rather religious person. But they went through the hard times in Sydney, the Depression, and then the war years. And the little story with Dad and his father, Uncle John shared that one of the brothers was sick and went away. And Dad and grandfather Edward, they went down the back in the garden, and in those days it was hard to get things. And grandfather had come across some tobacco, and they liked to have a smoke, but there was I couldn't get any cigarette papers. So Dad, in his usual way, come down, he had Nana's Bible. In those days, Bibles were made of rice paper. So they tear out little pieces, being very, very careful not to take too much in every section. So they roll them up, 20 feet, so beautiful. So they got to call it their holy smoke. So they quite enjoyed that. Very, very, very good one. Amanda, I said that Dad rang me when he'd come down here. I was concerned about him to come back to Sydney, back from Sydney by himself down to here. I'm thinking he's going to be by himself, and that's not like Dad. And he rang me this night, so I met some on the bowls. Oh, okay. Met some on the bowls. Oh, that's not special. He said, I just saw it. I said, that'll do me. So, it's a bit early. You've only met it today. He said, no, I'm married. I said, oh, okay, no worries. And not long later, he announced to me that Peggy and him were getting married. So, not a good judge of character, Peg, what do you do? But they shared many, many, many years of happiness and everything. I'd like to thank Peggy from the bottom of her heart for everything she's done for Dad, especially in his dying moments. She was there every second for him. She, seriously, she wouldn't let him out of the sight. And to the fact that these people at nursing home don't know how to look after him, I'm here and I'll do it. So she rang the buzzer quite often, and she did very, very well. But I'd like to thank everyone for coming here today. And it's difficult for me. I've sort of come up with, I don't know how I'm going to handle this, but It's all been good. Another thank you to Gary, who has looked after Peggy and Dad through the house, like Dad getting older. He couldn't, a lot of things he couldn't do. And Gary's filled in the gap and done amazingly well. Thank you, Gary. Amanda for putting today together. Thanks so much, darling. It's beautiful. What's your name, Peggy? I love you. And you've been so good to Dad. You worry about your parents when they move away and they've got no one else there and you can't be there because you're in Sydney. Peggy looked after him so much. It's incredible. Dad, I love you. These people here looked after you so well and give them another family, which is great. So I'd like once again to thank you all very much and I appreciate everything you've done for me. Thank you all very much.
You remember me when the west wind blew among the fields of barley. You can tell the sun is jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. So she took her love for to gaze a while among the fields of barley. In his arms she fell as her head came down among the fields of gold. Will you stay with me? Will you be my love among the fields of barley? And you can tell the sun in its jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. I never made promises like these. There have been some that I've broken, but I swear in the days still left, we'll walk in fields of gold. We'll walk in fields of gold. I never made promises like these. There have been some that I've broken, but I swear in the days still left, we'll walk in fields of gold. We'll walk in fields of gold. Many years have passed since those summer days among the fields of barley. See the children run as the sun goes down, as you lie in fields of gold. You remember me when the west wind blows among we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold. For you, there'll be no crying. For you, the sun will be shining, 'cause I feel that when I'm with you, it's alright. I know it's right. And the songbirds keep singing like this. Know the score, and I love you, I love you, I love you, like never before. To you, I would give the world. To you, I'd never be cold, 'cause I feel that when I'm with you, it's alright. I know it's right. And the songbirds keep singing like this. Know the score, and I love you, I love you, I love you, like never before, like never before, like never before.
I'd just like to say the Lord's Prayer and just thank Geoff for looking after our nan for all these years and all the hard work, because we all know that now it takes a lot of us to get on that. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
This is the final part of today's service, and really fitting service, I think, for Geoff. So now we commit his physical body. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose here on earth. A time to be born and a time to die. In sadness at death's Geoff, but with appreciation of his life, we remember and acknowledge the significance and value he has brought to the lives of many. But now it is time to say our final goodbye, committing his body to be cremated and thus committing his memory to our hearts for the rest of our days. In love, we leave him in peace, and with respect, we bid him farewell.
Through a storm, hold your head up high, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of love. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, for your dreams be tossed. I'm lost. Walk on, walk on, with all in your heart, and you'll never you